Before I dive in, my name is Ben Sorensen. I'm the founder and the president of Ascent Digital. We're a full-service marketing agency here based in Durango. I've got a team of 11 now full-time employees, and we work with businesses all over the country. What we specialize in is lead generation for home services businesses, but we also work with businesses in all sorts of different industries. We manage a couple $1 million in ad spend annually, and we're really measured on performance. And so by nature, I have to keep a really close pulse on algorithm updates and platform changes and things like that. So brings us to the Andromeda stuff. But before I dig in on that, just maybe a show of hands so I know kind of a baseline of roles in the room. Small business owners, raise your hand if you're a business owner. Okay, awesome. Of the business owners, do you guys also wear your marketing and advertising hat?
When I don't hire you.
Pretty much all of them? Yeah, perfect. And then if we're not an owner, anybody else in more like the marketing, advertising, outreach world in their organization? Cool. Okay, cool. So I'm hoping that this adds a lot of value. Basically, the outline of what I want to go through is talk about the updates with Andromeda and these fundamental shifts that have happened with Meta. To kind of set the foundation, I want to go over some fundamental shifts that have happened, kind of recap what I'll call the old playbook. Hey, now we can get started. No. And the best practices, how it used to be with Meta advertising and social media advertising, talk about the new way and the new best practices in social media advertising. And my goal would be at the end of this to leave you guys with a playbook for your new efforts, whether you're doing it yourself or you're managing an agency or you have someone in-house that's doing your ads. I'm hopeful that you'll leave here with like kind of a bucket of best practices. And then we are going to record this. I'll make sure that this is posted on YouTube in its entirety. And then I'll share the deck and the slides with the chamber. All you guys have to do is fill out the survey. Make sure to give me 5 stars across the board, and then you'll get the decks. Honest survey answers get excluded. So, okay, cool. So we'll start with the shift that nobody can ignore. To put it as simply as possible, there's been a very drastic shift in the way that Meta is prioritizing and pushing ads out to audiences. There's always subtle algorithm shifts when it comes to these different platforms, whether it's Google or Meta. But every once in a while, there's these like fundamental, game-changing, real different changes in algorithms, and Andromeda is one of them. And so we've kind of got some noise in our space of where a lot of clients that we work with, a lot of other agencies, professionals in the industry have seen a big dip in performance and reach and really effectiveness on social media. And the old playbook is the way that you used to get to really throttle your advertising efforts was by tweaking targeting. So, there's all these ways that you can change who your message is resonating with and who's it getting in front of, and changing the targeting elements of your Meta advertising. But now the fundamental shift is that the new algorithm is going to reward how ads feel, and it'll kind of be a recurring theme throughout the presentation is creative over targeting now. So creative really is the new targeting. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So why a lot of the traditional tactics have stopped working. One of which is targeting precision has decreased. I'm sure you guys are aware that privacy is always a big narrative in online spaces. There's competition. It's kind of funny because the phones that we use are in direct competition with the apps that are on them, and iOS software updates and things like that. Obviously, algorithms have evolved, and we're going to talk quite a bit about how now machine learning and AI is driving algorithm and reach for advertising efforts. But also the human element has evolved quite a bit. We're really now conditioned to not want to be advertised to unless it's really solving a problem that we have urgency for. And so there's even just been a shift with how people are interacting with ads. And I'm sure everybody in the room can agree, we've gotten to the point where you see that like ad and it's like, keep scrolling. And so a lot of that is where, users have sort of become immune to the traditional way of doing advertising. So we're going to start by diving into Andromeda, which is a great catchy name, by the way. And I don't know how they got there, but what it is not is a money grab or a penalty for advertisers or anything like that. Kind of a lot of times, especially in my world, the default answer for agencies talking to their clients is that they need to spend more if they want to make more money or have better results. And I truly do believe that this isn't a money grab. If we were talking about Google, I'd have a whole nother narrative, but we'll save that for another lunch and learn. But what it is it's a fundamental shift in how Meta's algorithm is evaluating the content and the ad copy that it's going to be serving to the audience, and the way in which we can push it forward. So I don't want anybody to think that there's like bad intentions or the money grab side of it. So now though, Meta now is using machine learning and consumer user insights to measure how it's going to be pushing those ads forward. And I'll dive into it quite a bit, but one of the biggest ones now is engagement signals. And I'm sure you guys have experienced it in your own worlds, but even now the way that we interact and engage on social media has evolved. And I think it's expedited the evolution in probably the last 6 months. Best way I could explain it would be that we're doing more what I would call private engagement as opposed to public engagement. A good example of that would be, it used to be that you would see a post that was relevant to you, or you'd get served an ad that was relevant to, a family member or whatever. Like my wife right now, we're in the market for a new puppy. And so every time we would see puppy ads, the old version of myself would have tagged her in the comments on on those ads or the posts or whatever. You'll notice in your own business social media efforts and your own ads that public engagement is lower now. I think a lot of it is too because people are acutely aware that if they do engage, it impacts their algorithm. So I'm sure we've all had that moment where like, oh, I am interested in this, but not enough to click on it and have it now bombard my feed. Now what we're doing though is private engagement. And so instead of tagging my wife in a puppy post, I would share it to her private messenger and share it that way. And so Meta's starting to pay attention to these other engagement signals like watch time, private shares, and clicks to expand to full screen, and all these little subtle things that we're doing that don't necessarily leave a like or a comment on the post or the ad. And now we're able to measure how that engagement's happening, which is then bumping it. And so I talked about like the watch time and retention, and when we get into the presentation a little bit further, I'll talk about some of the best practices with having a hook and a message and a call to action in your ads. And then the biggest one now though is creative diversity. And I'm going to talk about some statistics. So it used to be super straightforward. We could run ads with 1 or 2 creatives and get results that we need. We're now at our agency sometimes uploading upwards of 10 creatives per campaign. And we'll talk about that, but it's rewarding creative diversity. And then like we said, the user feedback loops. Obviously what we want to avoid is people saying, I want to see less of this or hide the ad or reporting it, but then getting the reward for the positive user feedback loops. So when you're thinking about your own business and your own organization that you're in, and you're trying to think strategically about your advertising effort, the best question I would say to ask yourself is would somebody stop scrolling for this? Like, is it going to grab attention? Is it going to, create a moment where somebody pauses for a second? Because even that slight pause gets triggered as engagement. And so the way that you want to do that is think about the first 3 seconds in your creative as your hook or your attention grabber. The next stage of that is going to be interest. So you hook somebody and then you pull them in and give them the bait that was on the end of that hook. And then action. So you want to stop with call to action. And one thing I would say about this too, we were talking about your video that you posted before this, and I do have some best practices on this later in the presentation, but don't worry about being overly polished. I think we're at a cool intersection now in the digital reality where we have to pay attention to algorithmic updates. We have to follow best practices with these platforms. But there's also so much opportunity for the human element to get bigger attention. And a lot of times the way that looks is an authentic video creative, like literally selfie style, like walking and talking or stumbling or having fun with a trend or whatever it might be. But don't be afraid to be authentic, even though we're now living in a machine learning environment when it comes to that. Because I actually think that is disruptive and increases the likelihood of somebody stopping their scroll because they're seeing a real human. We're never going to not do business with other people, no matter what happens in between. Time will tell. But what we found that I thought was really interesting, so I talked a little bit about this shift from targeting being the lever that we can pull on social ads to now where creative is the lever that we can pull. And what we want to do is be as broad as possible. So best way I could explain it was like, if you're familiar with the concept of like if-then statements, if somebody's this and that, then this, that kind of used to be how I thought through targeting elements. Like if somebody lived in Durango, was 35 years or older, had a household income of 100 grand and was interested in basketball, like that would be the target audience. For your own business and your own organizations, I want you to think about it broader than that. And instead of fishing with a one hook and a line, we want to cast a really wide net because the algorithms are really going to reward you for giving an opportunity for the ad and for the content to get served outside of maybe that like perfect persona for your business. The other thing is that quality creative wins, like we had talked about. And now the algorithms are finding the audience. And I'll dive into these. The goal is what we want to do is create positive feedback loops. So to think about it in as simple terms as possible, there's this idea that people like us do things like that. If anybody follows Seth Godin, the marketer, if you don't, you should. But it's this community, like it's almost replacing now lookalike audiences and things like that used to be really common practice in meta advertising. But in practice, what it is you set broad targeting elements, you upload multiple different creative assets. Now Meta is going to serve those to this broader audience and it's going to measure those engagement things that we had talked about earlier. And when you see some that start to get engagement, now automatically through machine learning, Meta is going to push that to other people that are like them. And you can get really sophisticated with it and start measuring conversion rates and lead volumes, thank you, and things like that. But even if it's a brand awareness campaign, it's going to start paying attention to those watch metrics and the engagement metrics, and then it's actually going to expand your audience to people that fit those similar demographics without you having to program it in and type in the actual targeting elements. We found that campaigns that are following these best practices, and I should add a caveat here that this is broad targeting and multiple creatives. So that's what these statistics come from. But they have a 73% higher performance rate and 2.5 times more reach. So 2.5 times the people are actually getting exposure to the ads, and then a 73% uptick in actual performance. So we also though need to break old assumptions, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but to kind of re-emphasize it or have an idea there. So one, we've got these issues now where targeting even by nature is more challenging anyway, because we have less of our information online, we're more private, our phones are not sharing information. Even location sharing is changing quite a bit. One of the things we like to do at Ascent is location-based targeting. We used to get great data from Life 360, if anybody's familiar with that app. Even that stopped sharing locations. So there's kind of this shift now in the digital space in general where information genuinely is getting shared less. So that's the first thing. The second thing is because of that, if we focus just on targeting, we end up with a really, really small sample size. And then with this small sample size, if we don't have enough audience to actually test the algorithm, we'll be really limited on performance. And then I talked about it too, about the algorithmic evolutions. at the end of the day, Meta says what to do and we got to do what they do. So this is me educating us on it, but we don't have a choice. We have to do what they're saying is best practices anyway. And then as we talked about, that tight targeting can limit the system's ability to discover new high value audience segments, and that positive feedback loop that we're trying to create with advertising. And so why does broad targeting work? It gives the algorithm plenty of room to learn and optimize. It reaches unexpected high intent users. And this has been a fun one for me to see at our agency is that it feels counterintuitive for me because I've always been such a targeting guy. Like, who's our persona? How do we get in front of them? And it's been 15 years in the making. And so I'm an old dog learning new tricks. But we have found that when we open up that net and cast that wider net, that we're getting conversions from places that we didn't think. I'm working right now with a financial firm, and they are convinced that their customers are 55 and older, and I'm trying to talk them into lowering the age range because I think there's people with financial windfalls and in a need for their services that are younger, and we have to give them an opportunity to interact. Obviously, it reduces audience overlap and then ad fatigue, and that's the other thing that we've seen a shift in human behavior evolution is once we get served the same ad a couple of times, we're kind of over it. We're either going to have converted or not. And so when there's a lot of people and a lot of creatives, it can be serving, it's this mix of things where certain people are seeing certain creatives and vice versa, and it's this big testing opportunity. We've also found though so Meta it's called the learning phase. And basically what it is it's the first 30 days of a new campaign. And a lot of times I get pressure from our clients to expedite the learning phase because they want results yesterday, as everybody knows. But we are finding tremendous value in trusting the process and letting the campaigns really get all the way through their learning phase. And so this is going to sound a little bit crazy, but at our agency, when we launch brand new campaigns, we don't touch anything for the first 30 days. And it's intentional because we want to let it learn. We want to let the machine learning get up to speed and start to get those signals. We also have found though that it lowers our CPMs, which that's our cost per thousand impressions. So the bigger the audience, the further the money is going to go as well. And then, better long-term scalability and more stable performance. What we want to avoid in advertising is these peaks and valleys. So it should be a pretty steady ramp up and then, generally speaking, kind of flatline until we start making other tweaks. But yeah, so if nothing else, take away from that, broad targeting over narrow. So if you're running your own campaigns and you're thinking about adding a targeting element, I would encourage you to not only not add it, but to remove something if you can. And we dove into this a little bit, so I'll be quick on this one. But our control of campaigns has decreased, and so some people are frustrated that there's less levers to pull and there's less. It's like this perception of control. Rather, we're joking at the office lately that we almost are literally to the point where we think that targeting is now just recommendations for Meta. Like there are cases where we're not sure that they're even following our targeting that we're putting into campaigns. So it can feel like it's been worse, but it's one of those where the tide is moving, and if we jump in and just go with the tide, instead of trying to swim upstream, I think the performance will actually be better, not worse. So there's fewer hacks. We obviously can't find those loopholes or their shortcuts. And I want to echo that and reiterate that too about the learning stages of campaigns. If you're looking for quick results, go to Google, don't go to Meta. If you're looking for long-term, stable business growth results, Meta is a much better platform for that, but it's definitely not going to happen overnight. What I think is cool about it though is it also gives us an opportunity to connect with the right customers. And that's what I mean by this better stories piece here is that as we start to figure out what creative is resonating well with our audience, we can do more of that. And there's going to be signals that you can gain from your advertising campaigns that your ideal customer is responding well to this messaging bucket. And that's where the lever should be pulled, not on the targeting side of it. So like if you're in a business where you want, I don't know, more higher budget clients or in a certain area or whatever it is, pay more attention to the creative that's resonating with them and not trying to, force it into a targeting evolution. Instead, do more creatives that's resonating there. It'll also give you some good signals too for the type of organic content you should be posting, type of content you should have on your website. Like there's really good opportunities here to pay attention to the signals for the creative that's resonating, because then that can kind of expand into your overall messaging strategies in your businesses. Which brings me to the other point. The creative is the new targeting. A couple of best practices on this that I want everyone to take away is that video is no longer optional. So we used to be able to kind of skate by and have effective campaigns with static ads, carousel images, and things like that. Video is critically important. I'll go one step further to say it has to be vertical format video. So if you're going to be advertising on social media, and honestly, if you're doing anything on social media, whether it's organic or paid, is it has to be vertical format. It also, I alluded to this earlier, but to reiterate, don't worry about like these crazy high produced, made for TV type quality commercials. There's a time and a place for those and tons of effectiveness on them. But if we're talking specifically about social media advertising, like we said, when in doubt, put it out. I've seen some of our best performing campaigns are like influencer style or like a walk and talk kind of selfie style. You definitely want to make sure you still have good audio and that it's good enough, but we have these great, honestly, my camera in my pocket is probably higher quality than the one that's on the tripod. Use the tools that are available to you to help you get structured for it. I like using AI to help me with script writing, and I'll kind of frame it with what I want to accomplish and give it a hook. I've learned personally that me trying to read a script is never going to work, so I have it generate the script and I read through it a few times and then I wing it myself. But it'll help you like get started, start with this sentence or end with that thing, and do it that way. And then you also don't want to always be. Best way for me to explain this would be like used car salesman-y. Like we don't always want to be. I'm sure you guys have seen those ads where somebody's walking and it's like this very salesy, like if you need this, then call us here and do that. Again, probably should be part of your mix because that might resonate with your audience. But there's also great opportunity to build brand awareness, be informative. Thank you. What was I going to say? Just build your credibility through some of those ads. But if there's a takeaway at all on this slide, it's video, 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 video. Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm only doing this because you wanted it to be.
I appreciate it, yeah.
So I know someone who spent December learning about meta ads, and it's not like marketing isn't in his background. And he did a bunch of different creatives and did A/B testing, and the one that got him the most leads was just words over a colored background.
Yes.
Like a red background with words.
Yes. I was going to talk about that.
Okay.
I think that's in a future slide,
I
but.
don't want to do that, but if it works.
So what I would do, and we're starting to do this at Ascent, is video first for sure. So focus is going to be on a variety of video creatives, and then add in some very, very basic static image creatives. I don't know if anybody follows Hormozi or not, but I pay attention to him. He's kind of a thought leader on high ticket sales using social media advertising. He's like Gary Vee. He literally has a content creator with him, living with him, puts out 100 pieces of content a day. But it's a good case study to see the study in it. And that's exactly that, is those, if you are going to run static image ad creatives, it should be alongside a bucket of video creatives, and they should be overly simple. Like you said, he does black ones with white text, or we're doing an image from our clients with pretty basic text on top. then I think those stand out quite a bit.
Certain color, like psychological.
I would just go with brand colors, either like white, black, and gray, or on brand.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's a study on the colors on it. But I think, I'm glad you brought it up, because the whole point of it is to be disruptive, right? Like the question we should ask ourselves when doing meta advertising is this going to stop a scroll? And those authentic videos do, because they're engaging and people are curious, but so do those, I'll use the word weird, that's not the right word, but they stand out. You know, it's a super basic. When I was first advertising for Ascent, we had some ad creatives that were just a black square and then an animated lightning strike, and the logo would come out, and they did great. And we had no ad copy, no call to action. I get to experiment because I'm an agency, but yeah, I think, and I'm really glad you brought that up, that when you're thinking about your creative mix, some static ads can go a very long way, but just think of them in more of a disruptive way, not like your traditional, phone book ad that now we're putting on Meta. It's something simpler, really, usually is the best there.
I think with colors too, everything is so black, white, and gray anymore. Like it's the new modern thing. Like every home being built where we live is black, white, and gray. Like we have contests in the family to see who can win the bet, what color they're going to stuck to it.
Right.
Those three colors, and so something bright, bang, just draws your attention more.
Yeah.
So it was like a long time ago, statistically, red cars got more speeding tickets than any other car on the road just because they stood out.
They stood out, yeah.
And so that red just might be that thing that just makes you stop for that split second because it's not so plain.
Yeah, well, and that's what's cool now too, is that the algorithms are rewarding volume. So we have a great opportunity to test that. Like let's say we've got 4 or 5, 6 video creatives that we're running, and then we're going to add 3 or 4 static image ones. What a great opportunity now to do the pop of color, or the white one, or the black one, or the funny one. Who knows? But yeah, because then we just sit back. And you mentioned A/B testing. Now the new world is A, B, C, D, E, F, and G testing. But yeah, total permission to include statics. I just wanted to put up here some examples for video creatives that might work, in case I can get some gears turning or some ideas for you guys to take home. But problem resolution topics, I really like those ones. I'm trying to think of what an example would be. I know Shaw is here, and they've started doing this great work with mini splits and HVAC. But you could have a concept where you're saying, are you burning up, or is your house not comfortable anymore? We have a solution for it, and kind of those ways to get people's gears turning, that you're really talking to them. But everybody's business is in the business of solving a problem, and I think you've got permission now to call out that problem, and that's actually a signal to the machines and the humans that people should be paying attention to you, because you have the solution to the problem. Behind the scenes, I think, is a great opportunity. I'm talking about how I think there's really great opportunity right now to bring the human element back into the spotlight on our social media advertising, and bring the personality. Like, show people what you're doing, get to know the crew, what you're doing behind the scenes, the day in the life stuff. It's less polished, it's less fun, but it also shows how expert you are in your industry, and that you're working hard, and that you're a real human being. Day in the life I had talked about. Transformation stories, one of the things I really like to do here, and I'm going to kind of combine it with the social proof as narrative, but is client testimonials, customer testimonials, and they don't have to be polished or crazy. I mean, a selfie style video of them saying that they got great results out of the thing that you did for them, or that they're really happy, or that you've made their life better. And then if you want to get really crazy, splice a couple of those together, and you'll have kind of a testimonial montage. But you're basically letting multiple other people say one concise message on your behalf, and that builds trust, because now it's not you saying it, it's your customers saying it for you. There's 1,000 different ideas out there. One of the other things that we're finding a lot of success with is tweaking trends. So if you're, having a creative block or creative freeze, and you're needing some ideas, go and start scrolling and get some trend ideas. and then we tweak them a little bit to inject our client's personality into them. But trends are fun, and get people engaged. But there's really opportunity right now to get creative and get authentic and play with the type of video that's out there, because and this will segue into it perfect, is if you're running your own campaigns or you're managing an agency that is, or you have an employee, one thing I want to make sure everybody takes away from is always have the mindset of in addition to, not instead of. So if you need to go in and optimize a campaign or do something like that, add creative to it. Don't take something out of it and replace it until it matures. There's some exceptions, but that's why volume and variety matters, is that the algorithm needs options to test and learn what's going to resonate with those different audience segments. So even one like stellar creative is going to underperform 3 or 4 mediocre creatives, because it's limiting the ability for the algorithm to learn. So quality over quantity, and when it's in the social space, I would say default to quantity, which is a whole different change in narrative for me. That's why I'm learning this as we go. But it also gives you an opportunity to try different things, like we talked about A/B testing now being A, B, C, D, E, F, and G testing. Try different word tracks, try different call to actions, try different tones. There's been a lot of studies that females are outperforming males in ads. So if you have an opportunity to not have a ugly guy face like me on it, and you can have a female on it, things will perform better. So yeah, think about variety and saying different things. I'll pause here and mention, in case anybody's getting lost, and I know I'm having everybody drink from a fire hose with all this technical stuff, but take all the noise out of it and really think about what advertising is. And any advertising professional can confuse an audience by talking about, dropping acronyms and big words and all that stuff. Forget about all of that and just think about 3 variables in your advertising. It's who are we talking to, what are we telling them, and where are we telling it? What's our audience, what's our messaging, and what's our platform? And if you view your advertising initiatives through that lens, you're already way more strategic than any of your competition or anybody doing that themselves. And so you think about, who are we talking to? There's this group of people that have a problem that I can solve through my business. So we've identified the who, right? And then we've talked about broad targeting. So keep it simple. It's like homeowners or residents of Durango or whatever. And then what are we telling them? That's where things get fun, because we can experiment messaging techniques and communication strategies that might resonate with them better than others. And so when we've identified who we're going to talk to, and we know our platform's Meta in the context of this conversation, now where we get to play is what we're telling them and how. And so play with it. Like, try different talk tracks, try different messaging points, try different visuals, things like that. But don't overcomplicate it either. It's just like, think about who you're talking to, and then talk to them as if they're on the other side of your phone or your camera or whatever, the human side of it. And then step back and do nothing and let the algorithm choose the winners. I put in here 10 plus creative variations with strategic differences. The way that we're finding is working really well in the new algorithm space is that we're batching content. So we have a cadence where we film content for clients every other month, and we're getting a whole batch of 8 videos, 8 different photo assets, and some strategy behind that. And then we're updating things in batch loads of content. So before you actually start launching and building campaigns, have a whole batch of content in your back pocket. Because honestly, one of the best levers you can pull is add a creative to the mix. And in fact, in the first 30 to 60 days, that'd be the only thing I recommend you do is add creatives to let it test it. Launch, so give each creative equal share of budget, and then let the system learn and identify the top performers. And then on your side, what your responsibility is to get the reporting from your agency or Meta directly or however you're structuring it, and then pay attention to the top performing creatives. I'm running campaigns right now for a local real estate group, and it's been really cool to see a shift. So real estate best practices used to be that carousel ads crushed it on Meta, and we would pull listings, and you kind of get, everybody's always curious about real estate, so everybody's clicking and how much is that house, or is it my neighbor's house or whatever. But for 4 years, carousel ads were their top performing creative element in ad campaigns. And then we started adopting best practices with Andromeda. This last round, vertical video format ads had a 30% click-through rate, and the carousel ads had a 2% click-through rate, which is like, I don't know if I can understate how drastic that shift is from normal. My last 10 years of social advertising, it was always those carousel ads
Same with organic.
did better. Yeah, yep. Or organic. Yeah, I would. Well, and don't not do it. Like, having stuff out there is better than having nothing out there. But it's definitely rewarding video, without a doubt. And I think I talked about it earlier, but I think there's algorithmic push to that, and I think there's the human push to it too. And so you end up with that getting exponential, because the algorithms want us to be posting more content, publishing more video. We're competing for attention anyway. And then the humans are engaging with video more than static in most cases. So then that refeeds the algorithm, and the feedback loop gets bigger. And then scale. So pay attention to the messaging that mattered, the messaging that resonated, the ad creatives that performed well for you, and then do more of that.
Have you noticed that the creators are also reusing a lot of content,
Mm-hmm.
switching up their hooks, but keeping pretty much the captions the same?
100%. Yeah, I've even literally reused with no change. Yeah. And sometimes I think we have to just get comfortable knowing that we don't have the control we used to have. Like, we're living in an algorithmic driven world now. And I fight those battles with clients all the time of like, I'm doing the best I can. But sometimes it literally is as simple as pulling a creative for a month and then re-uploading it, or posting something that worked, or do a different version of that. But yeah, 100%. There's even some studies or like thoughts kind of emerging that publishing the exact same thing twice in a day and leaving it is beneficial. Yeah. Don't let me speak like with authority to that, but that's kind of some narrative that's been happening. All right, we're gonna talk about best practices. I'm doing okay on time. And then hopefully lead you with your meta advertising guidebook now. Think about your objectives. So you want to structure your campaigns with one campaign per objective. So are we trying to sell XYZ? Are we trying to get leads for this service? Or are we trying to do, build brand awareness or whatever? Campaign is synonymous with objective. So you have your campaign. What you wouldn't want to do is, I'm trying to think of a super simple example. Let's say you're a landscape company and you offer landscape design and snow removal. You wouldn't want to do snow removal and landscape design in the same campaign. So you'd have separate campaigns for separate initiatives, separate objectives, but then broad audience targeting on both, and multiple creatives and ad sets on both. So the only time when I would separate your campaigns is when they're those truly different objectives. Other than that, everything should live within that same campaign. So like, if it is with the same objective, don't build out a separate campaign for a separate creative. It all lives under that umbrella. This is gonna sound crazy, but launch with 6 to 10 creatives. And then add, I talked about this, in addition to, as opposed to in replace of. So as your campaigns are live and starting to run, add 2 to 3 new creatives per week. And then start to slowly pull out the low performers, but with more time, like not at the same time. So you wouldn't want to add the new creatives and take the others out simultaneously. You'd add and then take out like a week or 2 later. So there's kind of this evolution always of creative that's in there. And then start to reallocate budgets to the best performers. Always though, give it more time than you think for learning. One of the narratives that pops up in my life all the time is that I can't pull the switch. It's not an overnight thing. We have to give it time to see the changes that we made, them come to fruition. So plan on, at least 3 to 5 days for a mature campaign to measure the effectiveness of any changes. But for a brand new campaign, first 30 days. come up with a cadence that prevents fatigue. One of the things that we've done, because we have to scale, obviously, and we have to service a whole lot of clients, and it's not easy to always be having high quality video, so that's where the static ads are coming into play for us. And when you start to see creative fatigue or something dropping, what I would say here is spirit of the law as opposed to letter of the law, and come up with a cadence that just makes sense for you that you can stick to for updates. But here's kind of a snapshot of some ideas. The other thing that's important to know too about Meta, the best way I can explain it is that when it comes to marketing and advertising, we basically have two paths that we can take. Path number one is securing existing demand. That's going to be people that are actively looking for the thing we offer and making sure we show up in front of them. Most of that path is going to live on Google and websites and search engines, AI answers now, securing existing demand. I think there's way more opportunity for upside on generating new demand. But it's important when we're executing on these campaigns that we know what we're trying to accomplish. If we're wanting to just secure existing demand, honestly, our money's best spent on like a Google AdWord campaign or aim small, miss small there. The return on investment there is linear, and it's great, but it's like you put money in, you get money out. Like very, very straightforward on Google. Generating new demand, though, is where things get really exciting because the return on investment can become exponential. But it's important that we understand in our meta advertising efforts that that's what we're doing, is generating new demand. So we have to build awareness for our product or our service. We have to build authority and credibility. We have to build brand equity and trust in our business and let people get through kind of a more midterm to longer term buying cycle before they actually convert. So what the action on that would be is we talked about it earlier, but we don't want to always just be like crazy salesy and have those hard calls to action and those hard hooks. We want some stuff that's more fun, more brand building and brand awareness, because what'll happen is that's the type of creative that's going to get more engagement usually, and now they're going to be in your algorithm and they're going to get served the more salesy type, high converting type creatives. But if you need to make money yesterday, Meta's probably not the platform to do it on. Google probably would have a quicker return on investment, but with enough time and knowing what the real priorities are with Meta, it becomes exponential. But I just think it's important that we take away from here that we're not just selling the thing. We're selling the experience. We're selling the community. We're building our trust, and then that's how the actual transaction happens.
Can I ask a question quickly?
Yeah.
The conversion ones. Is that part of the same campaign if you're just showing the conversion creatives to like the retargeting?
Yes.
So you can put that all in the same campaign.
100%, as long as it's the same objective.
You just say you show it to like people who have already engaged in the other ads?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, anybody, like usually what we would do is anybody who's shown engagement, it's custom audience is how you section that out in Meta, and you can select people that have engaged with past creatives. Yeah, and then you can sell a little bit. So I talked about this too, but I actually think we have a really great opportunity with the feedback now from these algorithms to help us influence our other efforts and our other strategies. And use it vice versa too. So when you're posting your organic content, see which ones are getting the most engagement on organic and with your existing audience and your owned audience, because there's a high likelihood that your future audience is going to engage with them too, but also vice versa. If you start to see ad creatives performing really well, you probably should learn from that a little bit on your organic effort. We talked about kind of the goal here is to create a positive feedback loop. The more people engage with our ad creatives, the more people are going to see it. The more they engage with our ad creatives, the more people like them are going to see it. And you end up with just this amazing momentum when it's done right. And then, obviously we want to take what we've learned from our organic strategy, apply that to our paid strategy so that we can scale it. And then don't forget though that brand matters. And we really want to still be driving home our brand pillars, our brand messaging, and the who we are, the human side of it. And I mentioned here that the lines between organic and paid are becoming blurred. How I would action that in your organization is to just really think about your paid strategy as an extension of your organic one, because really the stuff that's going to perform the best is going to feel organic anyway. It's just that we're paying for a bigger audience. But if it's going to work in your organic feed, it'll probably work really well in your paid efforts as well. And now we made it to your playbook. Clarify your story. So you want to define the core narrative, who you help, what transformation you provide, and why it matters. Who are we talking to? What are we telling them? You want to choose emotions over features. That's a lot of that problem-solving initiatives we were talking about. What's the real impact of working with you going to mean? How are you going to impact lives or make somebody's life easier or add value? Produce video at scale. So you want to create simple, authentic videos. You can use your smartphone, basic editing. There's now even AI editing tools that are out there. It doesn't have to be, overly produced. Launch broad, learn fast. So start with way wide targeting and then that diverse creative set. Let performance data drive your decisions, not your instinct, not your gut anymore. And then double down and keep doing more of it. And once you start to see what's resonating, scale it up and yeah. So I made through it in 52 minutes instead of 60. So a couple of minutes if we have questions or anything that I can help answer.
I could go on all day with questions and all that.
Are most of the videos that are performing well or that you create for people human? Like, it is the person, the business owner, you're not leading with imaging.
No, without exception. I would almost go so far as to say that we exclusively, have a human character. That they're almost always very human centric. I mean, every once in a while we'll do like a hypey, show a finished project or something like that. But 9 times out of 10, yeah, humans.
Talking.
Yep. Yeah.
One of the observations I had, because I've noticed changes, heard about Andromeda, you're supposed to make all these different ads, it's like a lot of the advertisers kind of have a different message. And so it's kind of confusing. You're like, I thought you were saying this, then you see their next ad and it's like slightly different. And you're like, well, it's kind of not aligning up.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a mistake that they're probably making. They're not like hitting the same exact message with different creative. And then the other thing I've noticed is like when I've converted and actually bought things, it's because I have seen the exact same ad like 7 times, and it kind of helps get the point in, and you're like, okay, I really know what you're saying, and that really resonates with me. So like these changes are like, it's kind of doing weird things.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when I bought, it's because I've seen that.
And it got you at the right moment.
Yeah.
Like now you've got the energy to pull out the wallet or.
That I saw like 6 months ago, they're running the same thing, and I'm like, okay, I've heard you guys, and you've said the same thing. It makes sense. You've convinced me now.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and that's I think speaks to patience in this space. Mm-hmm. Like people are way more conservative about converting now. Meta advertising used to be wildly simple. We set our targeting parameters, put an easy creative up there, and put money behind it, and fulfill the orders. Super simple. And I think now, and I think that's why it's evolving to those learning phases and giving time for the learning moment of it, is because we're finding that people will convert after. Sometimes it takes 50 touches before somebody actually converts. And it's an interesting observation on messaging, and that's where I would just add that keeping that objective in mind is really the priority, and to tweak. It's like that saying of always on course but never on trail. Like you can deviate with some deviation in your messaging, but you don't want to be saying totally different things. Yeah. Anybody else?
You ever come across people that just find the advertising completely annoying? Like, I will never buy anything I see coming across Meta because it just irritates me. I'm not going to Facebook to look at ads.
Yeah.
If I see an ad for a product, I'm not going to buy that product.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's where I think though my perspective on it is that if we're actually adding value, like if we're truly solving a problem and adding value and getting our messaging out there in a meaningful way to a proper audience, if done well, it should actually be perceived as way less intrusive than a normal ad would be. And I think that speaks to like this whole consumer behavior shift that we're seeing is you're not alone. Nobody wants to be advertised to. And when we are advertised to the thing that we need, it is helpful. You know, like there's plenty of times where we're all sick of being advertised to until it solves our problem. And then we're like, oh, you know, that's what I needed. I didn't know that was out there, like genuinely helpful. So that's the lens with which I view it. Because at the end of the day, we're going to be advertised to. Like, we're going to be marketed to. There's no avoiding that, you know. We're driving, we're going to get advertised. We're going to listen to the radio, we're going to get advertised. You know, whatever we do is we're going to consume ads. So I think as marketers and as advertisers, it's our opportunity to do so in a value add way and not in a like disruptive used car salesman way, you know? Like we genuinely think we can help solve a problem and then get that message in front of the people with that problem. Perception usually is a little bit more positive, but not always. Anybody else?
Do you guys ever utilize trial reels on Instagram?
Yes. Yeah. I'm. The jury's still out for me personally, at least, on the effectiveness of it. A lot of what we do is organic content as well, and there's this balancing act of like what actually matters when it comes to organic content. Like we've had some clients genuinely go viral, and their audience grows by millions, but it's an irrelevant audience anyway. Like a local plumbing company that now has 2 million followers because a reel went viral is cool, but it's kind of vanity metrics. So where I think those like trial reels come into play is what your end goal is, like what the initiative is. Like if you're a local business and we're trying to serve a local audience, probably a fun insight as far as messaging testing, but I wouldn't give too much weight to the reach of it unless you're like a national brand and, you know, really broader targeting. But I think that's another one of those examples of where all of these platforms, the whole point of any of it is that they want you on it. And the way that we stay on them is by being entertained and engaging. And so I think that's another one of those little like test things that they're doing of it's going to give us signals of if it's the type of content that they want on their platforms anyway, because it's the type of things that their users are engaging with, and then they get more ad money, by the way. But yeah, no, I think it's a really, really cool tool. I just don't know specifically about like how actionable it is afterwards. But anybody else before I run out of time?
I have one.
Awesome.
So, like, what would you recommend for a budget? It's not in my budget right now, like the big ad spend that we started with. For me, it was big. So is there a number where it's like pointless to do if you're only spending this much? But even if you're not in a hurry, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I mean, I would have to like, there's a scientific response to that for sure of, you know, figuring out our audience size and our share of voice, and we don't want to have too low of a budget to get diluted. You know, as we talked about, like people have to see the ad multiple times for it to resonate. So there definitely is a level where I would just keep the money in your pocket, you know, but the range of where that level is varies quite a bit based on industry and goals and things like that. I know that's kind of a non-answer, but with more information, I'd be able to get a better answer. But I wouldn't be too shy about small budgets. It's just that we'd have to know what we're, you know, that it's a small budget, and it'll take longer to come to fruition. Yeah. You guys, thank you so much. I got to stumble through my Andromeda update. I don't think it went terribly, so I really appreciate the patience and bearing with me on it. And yeah, thanks for giving me some of your time. I really appreciate it. And now I get to eat.